Okay. Well,
That's recording.
hi. So
Hi.
I am here with one of my previous mastermind clients, Sarah. And today we're going to be talking about her experience in the program and just the transformation that she's had and the results that she's created through the program and kind of hear her story about what happened and how she got where she is. So, hi, Sarah. Thanks for being here.
Hello.
Yeah, and being
Yeah.
willing to share your story and your experience. I know super vulnerable to share this stuff sometimes. So I'd like to start by just having you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you. So like where you're from, how old you are, and what do you do? Just like basic.
So I'm Sarah. I live in Austin, Texas. I'm 34 years old and I work in marketing at a tech company.
Awesome. So I asked you to come on today because I know that a lot of women in my audience will really relate with like where you were at the beginning of the mastermind and what you were struggling with and just dealing with coming into the mastermind and be really inspired by just hearing your story of how you basically, I would say it's like a complete 180 from where you were and where you are now. And so I'd just love to have you share that with us. So to start, I wanted to just hear like what was going on for you before and around the time that you decided to join the program. Just tell us a little bit about that.
So I was in a 2-year relationship that ended August last year, kind of bled into like October. And it was really, really painful for me. I have been through a couple of breakups, but it hit me in a different way than I've ever experienced and kind of rattled me to my core. And so I started working with a breakup coach, and she kind of walks you through the breakup process so that you can heal properly. And I started my journey with her, and I got to a point where we kind of turned a corner and I was able to function more day to day. She kind of walked me through like the thick of it. And we got to a point where she was like, I think you're ready for the next step, Sarah. I think you're ready to start dating. And I was like, oh, I don't know about that. But I knew that I was ready for something more because she kind of focuses on just that like really immediate aftermath of a breakup. And so she recommended me to Elizabeth, and I checked out her program. And what drew me to it wasn't just focused on dating. It was focused on becoming a healthier version of myself. And I could see that just from the stuff that I was reading on the website. And I knew that there was still a lot of inner work that needed to be done on my part. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what I needed to do, and I didn't know how to do it, but I knew that who I've brought of myself into relationships in the past has continuously not worked over and over and over again for years. And I was excited to kind of dive into what some of my insecurities are and what's causing. I knew coming into this that I have an anxious attachment style in relationships, and I was just coming to a point where I was starting to realize the damage that that's caused in my relationships. And I knew that I would never be able to have a healthy or successful relationship unless I deal with that, unless I face it and learn to be more secure in who I am and in the way that I relate with other people. And so that's kind of what brought me to the point of wanting to do this program. I am 34 years old, like I said, and I very much want to be in a relationship and to have children. And I knew that it needed to start with working out some stuff in myself. And I found exactly the right program. I'm so glad I came across you, Elizabeth.
My gosh, I'm so glad that you did. So I'd love to hear just a little bit about like what was the journey that you kind of went through in the program? Like what happened? Like what did you learn? What were some of the biggest breakthroughs and shifts that started to take place?
There was a lot. I should have taken notes to write this down, but um, I think one of the biggest things, I was thinking about this the other day, one of the biggest shifts that happened inside of me is that to not, I learned that my worth doesn't come from what other people think about me. My entire life, I've been a person who has only thought that I'm valuable if someone else says that I'm valuable. And I didn't know how to separate my actions and my behavior from my worth as a human being. And so if I messed up, I would spiral into self condemnation and shame and feel bad about myself. And when you don't like who you are, it's really hard to bring your best self to a relationship because you're living out of a place where you're constantly afraid someone's going to leave you because you're not good enough. And so that shift for me of other people's perspective of me is more about them than it is about me. And my worth and value as a human stands no matter what my actions and behavior are, just because God created me this way and he gave me inherent value as a human. For me to finally have my eyes open to that and tap into that has completely been revolutionary in my life. Like it has completely shifted my perspective, how I bring myself to the world, and the way that I approach relationships now.
What would you say is different because of that?
I feel at peace. That's what's different. I
Mm.
used to live in a constant inner turmoil of not liking who I was, or just like being really hard on myself and critical of myself. And what I learned is that everybody makes mistakes and it's not going to destroy me if I do. Um, and that has brought me this, it's brought alignment to what my alignment between what my values are and my actions. It's brought me to a point where I can actually be in the world the person that I want to be. And instead of going out into the world and being disappointed with who I am, I'm able to actually be aligned with the values that I have and my actions. And when I'm not, and when I make mistakes, I've learned to be gracious with myself and not spiral into self-condemnation. But really what that's helped me do is the more gracious I am with myself, I've realized the more gracious I am with other people. And I think previously I've been very critical, judgmental, negative, and I'm seeing people in a different light. It's brought a lot more positivity into my life. I think I've always been a pretty cynical and negative person. And all of a sudden I'm looking around and I'm seeing the best in other people, and I'm believing the best in them. I'm being hopeful, feeling hopeful for my future, and realizing like I don't have to live in that kind of cynicism and negativity that I've always lived in.
Yeah, and like we see, like that's often like a protection mechanism. Like it's projected outward what we're feeling about ourselves inward. So when you were able to shift your relationship with yourself, which it was so huge to watch that happen, and to hear at the end that that is where you got to, that like of course the way you're going to be with other people and the way you're going to interact and see life, other people, is going to be different.
Mhm.
So I'm curious, in terms of dating and men, what were some of the changes that happened?
There was another big shift that happened kind of like along those same lines is I think previously, and this is getting a little vulnerable here, but I think previously I thought that attention and affirmation from men was a sign of love or being wanted. And what I realized is that like physical attention in some way is actually not what I'm looking for. And I was able to make the distinction between attention and respect.
Hmm.
And that was huge for me, that I don't actually want someone to just look at me and like think I'm pretty or pursue me physically, but I want somebody who respects me as a person. And I've never been able to make a distinction between that in my life. And once I started to, I noticed that it was easier to say no to the wrong kind of men. And it was, first of all, it was easier to recognize right off the bat who had genuine intentions of pursuing me and who had ulterior motives. And I think before, those kind of got convoluted in my mind. And in the past, I've spent way too long being involved with the wrong guys that I knew were the wrong guys, but they showed me attention and then I wanted to be loved and accepted. So I gave them too much of my time, and we're talking like months to years. And one of the biggest shifts that I noticed in this program is that I've been able to evaluate very quickly who's a quality guy and who's not.
Mm.
And I've like, I went from like wasting 2 years, not in my last relationship, but just like other people who have like dragged things on and on, situationships for years, to like in 2 weeks being able to identify like this guy is not what I'm looking for, and cutting things off. And I don't think I ever was able to cut things off before, because I got too attached or it was too hard for me. I was too emotionally connected. And now I've been able to have more control over my emotions, and more intentionality in the way that I enter into relationships. And so when I notice that something is not aligned with who I am and what I want for my future, I cut it off. That is like, even my friends are like, wow, Sarah, this is brand new for you.
Yeah, like watching you for years just kind of be with these guys who just were not treating you the way that you deserved, weren't committing to you the way that you deserved, and being able to be like, I can see that this person is not the person for me. This person is not treating me the way that a man really should be treating a woman, and being able to differentiate between that without getting emotionally attached, which
Yes.
is really tricky. It's a skill to learn how to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think on the flip side of that, what I did notice almost as soon as I started with you, that I immediately had really high quality men just show up in my life. And I'm talking like I'm walking down the street, or I'm at the gym, or I'm posting stuff on social media, and they're just showing up and they're interested. And I could tell like these are the kind of men that aren't just like trying to, worm their way into your life. They actually are like, I see something in you and I'm drawn to it and I want to get to know you more. And I have some of those have turned into deep friendships, which I'm so grateful for. And some I got to explore and figure out if they were the right match for me. But like looking around from like just the immature, insecure guys that I've spent time on in the past, to all of a sudden these like really high quality men. And all I was doing was living my life. I should tell the audience, I wasn't even on dating apps during this. I
Was it?
actually, I
But how
got
many
off
dates
Hinge.
did you go on during the program? Like you went on like you had so many men.
Yeah. Yeah. I did probably every week I was going on dates, and I never got on a dating app.
Yeah. And there are women who listening to this will be like, I don't really want to use an app. And Sarah, you were one of those women who was like, I don't want to use an app, and you did not need to. You were attracting all of these men the whole time.
It was crazy. Like just by going through this journey on my own, I would meet people and they'd start talking to me, and I don't know what I was saying that's different from what I said in the past, but like guys would be like, "Oh, I can tell you're like on a journey, or like healing or learning or growing." And I'm like, "Yeah." And then they were too. And so to be able to find people who are kind of on the same path as you, who are focused on like self-reflection and personal development, it's people like that have not really been in my life before. And all of a sudden you meet people and you're bonding on something that you have in common, which is growing into a better version of yourself.
Yeah, yeah. And like finding a man who is interested in personal development and growth. And
As I'm starting to do this work on myself and meet other people who are doing that kind of work, it's given me a lot more hope that I will find somebody like that someday, because I'm seeing for even friendships or dates that I'm going on, like these high quality, emotionally mature men are out there everywhere. And I didn't see that before. I didn't know that they were out there before.
yeah, yeah, and that's big too, is like raising the standards of what you know exists and that is
Yeah.
possible to have. So I'm curious, for like everything that you've just talked about, the inner transformation, the outer stuff, the stuff in terms of dating, like what role would you say the program had in getting you there, and what about the program helped you do that?
I think the program was all of it for me, honestly. I think, let me know if my computer freezes again.
You're
Um, I think um, what I didn't realize while we were going through it is how powerful and impactful it was to have you meet with us one-on-one or in our group every single week and have that personal time to walk through what my insecurities and fears and issues were, and to be able to have your guidance to go into myself and figure out the root of where my insecurities are stemming from and address those specifically. Every time we got off a call where we did some inner child work, like a shift happened in my life, like a major change of things that I for years and years and years, I have not liked who I am, and left I left my family when I was they lived in they I grew up in Phoenix, and I left home for college, and I never went back, and it always has been like me trying to find healthier relationships and be a better version of myself, because sometimes my family doesn't always bring out the best in me. And through this process, all of those things that I never thought I'd be able to change in myself, I was able to actually look at and address and shift inside me to a place where I'm not there. I will never be fully arrived or perfect, but I'm on top of it now. I feel like I'm in a place where when fears or triggers do come up, I can objectively look at them and work through the emotions that enter my body instead of just reacting. And I was like extremely reactive before. I was triggered constantly, easily offended, fight back with my family all the time. And I hated that about myself. I always wanted to change it. And for years and years and years, I never have been able to. But having you walk us through inner child work every week really got me to a place where I've been able to have a lot more internal stability and be able to manage my emotions better, work through a trigger when it comes up. And it's shown in my relationships with my family already. Like I would like the last couple times I visited my family, there haven't been blow up fights. Which is a lot of progress, because there's always usually some point where we just, get into a big thing. But it's been, and I don't think I ever told you this, Elizabeth, but my mom, she's going through her own stuff too. She's single as well. And so she asks me every week, like, what did you learn in your course this week? And she's been benefiting from it a lot too, which is really encouraging.
Oh, that's great.
It's fun to be able to share. It's fun to be able to share what I'm learning and see it benefit other people around me that are close to me as well.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean that must mean that she was seeing something coming out of it if she was valuing it to ask.
Yeah,
I love that.
yeah.
That's so great. So what I'd love to know in terms of just like material changes in your life, like what are the biggest things that have shifted for you just in terms of like living your life? Obviously emotional regulation and handling triggers. Are there other things?
I was really ready to like up and leave Austin, like if something else came up. I just felt like I wasn't tied to anything here when I started the program. And somewhere in the middle, I didn't even realize, but I planted roots here. And I think I did that because I came to a place of like calmness and peace inside myself. And the roots really formed from the relationships that we're developing. And those are like close friends around me, coworkers, neighbors, people that I met. My circle shrunk, and I was really happy about that. I don't need as many people in my life all the time. And I'm happier that way because the relationships that did develop, like I developed a best friend during this process from work, and I was able to practice a lot of the stuff I was learning that I want to use in like a romantic relationship. I was able to do that in a friendship, and so it gave me like a really good safe place to
Mm.
try to build trust again, both with myself and with other people, and to open up. And I've just realized, like, in my adult life, I don't think I've had relationships that were that deep. And they are because I'm able to bring my true, authentic self into relationships, and I'm able to navigate issues without before I would either like be afraid to bring something up and then build resentment, or I would blow up. And I've been getting better at navigating conflict with my friends.
Mm.
So I think having deeper relationships has helped me feel more rooted and more satisfied with my lifestyle and just my life in general. And so it's built a lot of joy in my life. And I'm looking around and I'm like, I actually really love my life. I really love it. And I don't want to leave. And I'm really grateful for the things that I have. Whereas before I was kind of like, I'm not like fully satisfied. I want to go somewhere else. And that's been a really big and exciting shift for me too.
That is big. And you're definitely not the first person who has said to me that like her relationships, non-romantic, also deepened and developed and got stronger and better. That seems to
Wow.
be, this work is relational work, right? So whether it's your partner, or it's a friend or family, all of it does get impacted, coworkers.
Wow. Yeah. Oh, it definitely impacts my my professional life as well, constantly, because I'm a very emotional person. I'm an Enneagram 4. There's lots of like mood shifts that happen, and it's hard for me to separate my emotions out when I work. And I have like been working on how to work through a trigger. And so when that happens at work, instead of getting frustrated or whatever I do, shutting down, blowing up, I am definitely able to bring a better version of myself. And I think the people who work closest to me are seeing that too, which is nice.
Yeah. Yeah. My gosh. I mean, that all of that, that's so huge. Every single thing that you said, if that was it, like that would have been huge.
Yeah, yeah. And one more thing on the material, like a big change in my life is I noticed that I have spent a lot more time by myself. And this was probably like at the beginning of the program, maybe in the first month. I remember thinking I need to learn to enjoy my own company. I've always been pretty fiercely independent. Like I don't have a problem going places alone or doing things alone, but I actually like really enjoy it now. And not only do I enjoy it, I need it, because taking that time away to have some self-reflection and work through stuff helps me prepare for when I do go out and start to meet people and engage with people. I need alone time, but I'm also very social. So I'm learning to balance that. But a lot of the time, I think before I would just hang out with people because I needed like attention or affirmation. And now I'm able to be more selective about the people that I hang out with.
Mhm.
And instead of just like constantly going, I'm able to reserve energy for the right people and the right relationships, and then step back when I need to re-energize. And that's been really nice too, because I feel like I'm able to bring more to my friendships.
Yeah. And I want to shift a little bit and just ask about the coaching. So, your experience with the program and the work we do both in the modules and just together in the group sessions. I know that you've done other kinds of coaching, I think therapy, and women are always curious like, what is different about this versus, anything else that you have done? What would you say about that?
I think this was so I've done therapy where like you talk about week to week, like what's going on in your life currently. And it's either talk therapy or like you bring your current issues. We did a little bit of that, but I would say the bulk of the work was really delving into past traumas and fears and issues that happen in your childhood, and or really just looking inward and trying to like understand and analyze where those things are coming from. The parts work that we did, the inner child work, shadow work, um those to me are more reflective than necessarily talking about like day to day, what's going on, how to best make decisions in your life. And so I'd say that was what was so transformational for me, is
Mhm.
that we didn't neglect talking about what was happening week to week. That was definitely part of it still, but we were able to focus mostly on like the big blockers, the things that have been holding me back for years. I'm talking years, if not decades, of just not being able to overcome parts of myself that I don't love, and really looking into what's causing that and working through it. And I really appreciated having that time.
Mm. Yeah, that's interesting. Thanks for sharing that. So I know that some women can, be listening to this and be like, wow, that sounds really great. I'd love to get there too. And it can be helpful just to hear someone's thought process to like how they made the decision to like join. So for you, what was it that helped you make the decision to say yes? And what ultimately had you kind of jump in?
Uh, I feel myself getting emotional. There comes a point in your life where you say, enough is enough. Enough is enough. I have made the wrong choices for too long and not seen the results that I want. And I know what my goals are and my desires are, and I will stop at nothing to make that happen. And I think I was propelled forward by heartbreak. That's kind of what initiated it. And then I looked around at myself and I realized I have to break some of these bad habits and learn to be a better version of myself to bring into relationships. And if I don't address that now, I'm going to repeat the same cycle over and over and over again, which is going to lead me into the same hurt and heartbreak again and again and again. So it was the motivation of saying, I don't want to be hurt like that again, but I also don't want to be this person anymore. I want to be free. I want to be able to have the opportunity to have a healthy relationship and live the life that I want. And that needs to start today. And enough is enough with my past.
Yeah, yeah. So kind of getting to that point where you're like, I'm ready to make a change. I'm willing to do what it takes. I
Yeah,
can't continue this pattern and like just owning that and jumping in, which
yeah.
I know can be scary because it's hard to imagine where you'll be at the end of something like this, which is transformational. I know that for you, you couldn't have imagined being here now.
I mean, that's what's crazy is it's exactly what I hoped for. I like you had us write down at the very beginning what we were hoping for at the end, and I didn't look at it again until we did our reflections at the very end. And I looked back and I was like, no way, no, there's no way. Because you don't realize what's changing while you're going through it or how much is changing. And then you look back like 4 or 5 months ago and you're like, that was that's not me. I'm like not even that person anymore. And to see how much alignment there was between what I was hoping to accomplish and where I was hoping to get and who I actually was at the end of it. I mean, great job. Like
Well,
great job.
that it was not just me because you definitely put in the work. Like you showed up and you really did the work that it took. So I also want to recognize you as like these results are results that you created because you were willing
I
to do that.
it is a lot of work. It does take commitment. I do want to speak to your modules too, because I
Yeah.
think that the content that you have put together is really what helped get me to this place, because we're doing the inner child work on our weekly calls, but then during the week I'm learning. I was listening. I listened to most of them. I would like go for a walk and listen to them and then take notes and listen again. And every a lot of the information was like I've studied a lot about relationships. I've read a lot of relationship and self-development books. A lot of the information was new for me. And it was those little perspective shifts that happened a little bit at a time that have brought me to a place where like I see everything differently now because of little small things that I learned from listening to your content. And I think that that is a massive part. Like if someone's going to participate in this program and they're not going to put the time in to actually digest the information you're teaching us, then they're not going to see that kind of transformation. You have to do both. You have to dig into your past trauma and heal those wounds. And you also have to learn and let your perspective be shifted as you're moving forward. And I think it's ongoing. Like you have to daily commit to working on stuff, or you're going to,
Yeah.
you could end up backtracking, and nobody wants that.
Yeah, I think that's important for women to hear too. It's like you get what you put in, right? And you were someone who like you put 1,000% in, and so of course your transformation is huge because it wasn't you were just coming to the calls to be coached. It was you were actively doing things outside of the sessions.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's important. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much for being willing to come on and share your experience and being vulnerable, sharing like where you were and what you went through. Cause I know that can be just like uncomfortable or vulnerable, just sharing this stuff. But I know that there are women listening who need to hear this and like need to know that it's possible to have a transformation like this and to see so much change in 5 months in your life. It was only 5 months.
It's crazy. If somebody is listening to this and trying to decide what to do and what the right next step is for them, I'm the type of person who's pretty skeptical and wouldn't believe that this kind of transformation can happen. And I'm not here to say I'm a completely different person and like I'm totally like perfect and everything's great now. But really, what I've learned is that I can take massive strides forward. And I do have the capacity to be the person that I've always wanted to be. And I think somebody probably needs to hear that message because I never believed it myself. I just never thought it was possible. And now I'm here living it. And it didn't take that long. The worst part of all of this is that I just keep thinking, wow, I wish I had done this 10 years ago. I wish I had known these things so long ago before I invested in the wrong relationships and wasted all this time and didn't respect myself enough. So I would say if you're thinking about doing this, like sooner rather than later is the best way to go, because there's no reason to delay learning how to respect and love yourself more. It will change every single relationship in your life. And if anything, I just wish I had done it sooner.
Yeah. Yeah. For those younger women who are listening, like don't put it off. Don't wait to struggle for years to then need to get help. Get it even before you struggle.
Yeah.
That's always my advice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Sarah, you know that I adore you and I am so grateful for you coming on and speaking to this. And I know that like only the best is coming in your life. And I can't wait to hear about the guy that you are meeting who's just going to be amazing. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I mean, I have all of this is thanks to you and the time that you've invested in us and just putting the material together and then walking us through all of our issues. So it really has been transformational and I'm extremely grateful for it.
Yeah, yeah, my pleasure.